Quigley Cripple, everybody probably knows who Bob Quigley was, but he passed away about, what, 3 years ago. He lived up in Northern California. One time he had a fly shop in the basement of Rick's Lodge there. He used to tie on cases of Budweiser's. But
this is a crappy old fly shop.
yeah, it was, yeah. But that guy was the most innovative fly tyer, and he probably tied more size 22 parachutes than anybody in the hands, and he was amazing. But anyway, he lived out there on Fall River, so you know he was out fishing every day, and he was the first one to come up with realize that those mayflies don't always hatch right, and they're cripples, and the fish key in on the ones that can't get away because it's easier to do that. So he came up with that original Quigley Cripple, and it's killer. And it's not only just good for mayflies. Craig was using that thing in November on Almanor. He had a gray one in a size 16. He caught 4 big ass rainbows that were taking midges. So I've tied them from like 22s on up to 10s because you can even use them for green drakes. But it's just like a universal fly, and just change the color, change the size. That thing works.
Well, it's a technique, is what
yeah,
it is.
basically,
It's not a particular insect. It's a technique.
Yeah,
No,
basically, it floats pointing downward on the hackle.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I do sometimes, especially like calabatus, I'll trim a V out of the bottom of the hackle, because you're right. They kind of float more vertical.
Yeah.
Because of the way the hackle is.
Right.
But if you whack a section out of them, they float more on an angle. So if you don't like the way it's floating, you can do that. Just go in and trim it out. So that works pretty well. But this thing's been killer for forever. I mean, I don't see many people using the old original much anymore. But
I use it.
yeah,
I got a bunch tied up.
yeah,
so
no, I
use it.
still use them too. Yeah.
I use the Quigley Cripple for the hex hatch.
Sure.
Why not?
Basically, yeah.
I've got that one I tied when I was tying the hex.
Just
It's
really big.
based on the fly tying sequence that I used for the Quigley Cripple hex.
For the hex.
The hex.
Crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
And you'll see all the
patterns
flies
all
are-
pop up.
Yeah. Okay, so I just tied my thread on. I'm going to tie on this copper wire.
I
And
thought you were talking about our.
I'd like to tie it in on the
Well, it
back,
is on our
back
website.
side.
You can also get it in YouTube.
Can we turn the light a little bit
Which way?
away from it?
Well, then I can't see.
Yeah, it's fine.
fine.
We
That's
can
good.
see
See,
it.
can you
We
see it
can
there?
see
That's
it.
good.
We can see it
That's
well
good.
enough.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it was the glare, I think, coming off
Yeah.
his finger or something like that.
So when I tie the wire in, I like to put it on the back side on this thing, and because what I'm going to do,
On what side?
I tie it in on the back side,
Far side.
far side, yeah, away from me. Now I'm going to use Gene's little technique here, where I'm going to go down the bend till I'm got like a 45. That's pretty good.
Yep.
That's a good way to judge that your bodies are kind of the same all the way through. I'm going to use marabou for the abdomen of this thing. So I'm looking for these blood marabou with these fine tips, as opposed to marabou that looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay?
Okay, why?
Because I don't want that when I tie that shuck at the end of it. It's like a little shuck. I don't want that great big old full thing like that. I want more. It's going to look more like tails when I tie it in. And there's a sweet spot in these feathers, and you can see where it is because I kind of ripped that one out.
Which one are you tying now, the original or the modified?
No, it's modified, but it ties them the same way. They're tied exactly the same way. So I'm going to take maybe 6 or 8 fibers here. That's not going to take very much. I'm going to line them up, and then those tips are a little too fine, so I'm going to break this with my thumb.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, because when I tie with those things, the
Yeah.
tips are way too fine.
Too fine, yeah. No, so you break them back as far as you want. Okay? So I'm going to lay this on there, and the tail of this thing is only going to be maybe half the length of the body. And the smaller it is, the smaller the fly is, the harder it is to tie these things down. And I'm going to tie these fibers down with about 2 wraps. I'm going to pull them up, and then I'm going to bring my thread forward. Now what you don't want to do, you don't want to go past the middle of the hook, or else you're going to run out you're gonna run out of room with the
Crowd
body,
the
the
eye.
body and wing and everything, so. And normally I use my little hackle pliers for this, but
You want that?
nah, I've got them in there. If I let go of this, I'll have to start all over. So as I like to twist these fibers together as I go. I usually use one of those mini hooks on these. I do the same thing on pheasant tail fibers. I hook onto it and then I can kind of twist it. So I get to there, tie them down with about 3 wraps. Another 1 or 2 in front. I'm going to take my copper wire and my wire's on the other side from me, so I'm going to come underneath the tail. And I'm going to go underneath and I'm going to counter wrap this. About 4 wraps. And this is kind of important on this stuff, or else first fish is going to chew it up. You won't have anything left. About 3 wraps. And since Gene's here, I won't cut that wire with my scissors. Okay, and then here again, I'm going to use Superfine for my dubbing. And you can use beaver. Beaver works good, also. Nice thing.
The advantage of beaver, it will absorb water as opposed to rabbit. Remember, waterborne animals, their fur doesn't absorb the water as much.
Yeah, this wouldn't either. This
So
is
that
all,
stuff won't.
this is all synthetic. The nice thing I like about this Superfine is when you pinch it on there, it stays there pretty well. It's it kind of locks itself. The only thing is, if you're trying to blend this stuff, it doesn't blend in a coffee blender. It just knots up.
You got to hand blend it.
Yeah, I've got some like wool cards that wool cards I use.
Who makes the Superfine?
Wapsi, it's Wapsi. Wapsi makes it. I mean, it's yeah, you can get it anywhere. Comes in a zillion colors, and then I blend it up. This is a blend of olive and olive and gray. Okay, so I dub a little body, and I'm going to bring my thread
And there's
right
a
up to the
dispenser on
eye.
the opposite side, and you just tip it over and.
Yeah, they've got like 2 selections of that stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to use those trigger point fibers for this. Now, this is where I would use deer hair. Deer hair is a little harder. You got to stack it. It's harder to find the right kind of deer hair, and this just seemed easier. So, and here again, I like to leave this stuff long. It's easier to handle. With deer hair, you'd have to measure it out perfectly to get your wing the right length. With this stuff, you can just slap it on here and then trim it afterwards. So now I'm going to wind this back, and I want to wind it right up to my dubbing. And you can see that I've got a little space right there. So that's where my hackle is going to go. So you only need about 3 turns of hackle on this. And I like using saddle hackles because I don't have to use any hackle pliers with it. And there's enough there to tie a dozen flies right there. So I like to preen these things back, and then I'm going to strip some hackle fibers off. And I strip off more on the bottom than I do on the top. So I have that first turn of hackle is on kind of on bare stem. You notice I've left everything long here. The last thing I want to do is trim everything. So now a lot of guys will just, I don't know, Gene, if you do, you just trim it, trim your hackles and leave the little barbs up.
No, I do not like
Yeah,
that.
I never like to do
A lot of folks do it, and I don't like that.
Yeah, this
doesn't
it
look
lays,
neat.
well, it lays better this way. They claim it locks it in better. So the other thing is I'm going to tie the shiny side forward and the dull side back, or the concave side back. The old technique years ago, everybody would do the opposite because the hackle wasn't as good, and the theory was that it was stiffer when it went the other way, and when you strip your flies, it didn't fold up. But hackle's so good now that I don't think it makes any difference which way. What this does make it easier it's easier to tie it off, because if you go the other way, it flares all your hackle fibers toward the eye, and you're trying to get in there and tie it off, and you've got all these fibers in your way. So this way the fibers are back toward the tail.
So then you're tying the shiny side facing backwards.
No, shiny side forward. So the concave side is back. So anyway, I'm gonna,
But then,
okay, so I tied it down, got my thread right up to the back of the wing. I'm gonna bring the wing up and take one wrap up in front of at the eye, and then I'm gonna bring my thread back right behind the wing there. And I didn't get my head cement out, but I'd put a drop of head cement there. So now I'm just gonna,
Well, just anchor the hackle in.
yeah, it just kind of locks it in there. So I'm just gonna make 3 wraps, one in front of the other right here. And my crowd looks like I crowded the eye. So. And I'm gonna tie it off right there instead of at the eye. I'm gonna take 2 wraps. My hackle right there. And maybe 3. Normally I would put a drop of glue there too after I cut it off. And I'm going to come in here and just cut my hackle out. If there's any wild ones in there, you can trim them out. But you can't see that very well. So then I'm just going to come up front.
it's a little crowded.
Yeah, I got them.
I found the trick, the easiest way to solve a crowded head like that. Take your fingers and push your material back. You will be
Yeah.
amazed. You can actually compress it about 1 thread width to give you
Yeah.
enough space for a head.
Yeah, it'll be enough. I'll be
That's all you need.
So here's why I leave that long. I can get in here and my wood finish in there. So if I had my head cement, I'd drop head cement right in there, and that would lock that hackle down. So I'm just going to come back in here and I'm going to trim this material in. There's the same thing as a deer hair. I'm going to trim it right behind that little bump of dubbing. Gives you a little bit more flotation right in there. And I'm going to trim this wing so that it's about the height of the hackle. Now what happens sometimes, you'll pull on that and then you'll cut it, and then your wing's too short. Because as you pull on that and cut it, it kind of stretches it. So you can pull on it, but don't stretch it real long. I'm going to come in here and just cut that at an angle. So that's it.